Hi, everybody. This is Neil Allen, the creator of the comic series Zatswan Multiversal Guardian, which you can read for free over at the website zatswan.com. And I've been getting messages about my channel, like, we kind of wonder what happened to you, and we wish you would do more comic videos, and people wanting me to actually re upload some of the old comic commentary videos that I did before. I really appreciate that. Um, Sometimes it surprises me because the messages will come out of nowhere and, from people that I didn't even know would be aware of that. And they would kind of express their appreciation for those videos. So I thought that I would get back into doing that sort of content. And I would also like to do content about my own comic series, Zatswan Multiversal Guardian. So I'll get back into doing videos about that. And I suppose I can put them on this channel here, uh, since there's already somewhat of an audience that is built up. Meager as it may be, there are people that are already looking for that sort of thing. So, an interesting thing that happened was the direct to video movie Green Lantern Beware My Power leaked, and some people have actually been watching it. I took a look at it myself. I did plan on buying this movie anyway, and I still will buy it. So I like to, while the thoughts are fresh in my head, I would like to, give a quick rundown on some of the things that I think about it. It's a Green Lantern John Stewart centric movie. And John Simper Jr., who worked on the really, really awesome Spider Man cartoon show from 1994, is one of the writers on this. So that's interesting. He also did the Cyborg Rebirth comic series in 2016, I believe it was. And he also worked on some Static Shock in the in like on the cartoon show from the 2000s. So this is centered on Jon Stewart, and it seems like it's really aiming for fans of the DC animated universe, which began with Batman the Animated Series and ran up to Justice League Unlimited. You have Jon Stewart as the lead character, along with Shira Hull Hot Girl as a supporting character. Um, so there's a really strong DCAU link with that. So anybody who is interested in finally seeing, John and Hot Girl back together in an important role should be excited about seeing this. And I was too. I was really looking forward to it because this is like the first time basically ever DC has really done something substantial to cater to that fan base of Justice League, Jon Stewart, Green Lantern fans, and DCAU fans. And some people have a problem with that. Like, stop catering to fans of the DC animated universe. I don't know why, you know, that's always been like such a problem with people. Um, and I'm not really sure what the deal is. If there are fans of the DC animated universe that you have a built-in fan base there, why not exploit it and take advantage of it? To tell you the truth, it seems weird not to, in my opinion. Um, so it's good that this movie is unabashedly doing that. That's something that I'm actually really, that's really in its favor to me because, yeah, ever since I've been a fan of that, and I'm talking even way back in the 2000s, there's always been this stigma like you should be somehow ashamed of that, and like that's not the way it's supposed to be, and um, we should never see anything like that ever again, and it should have never happened. They're like, there's like a thought, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a prevailing thought, but there definitely does seem to be a segment of the fandom that holds that point of view, and DC Comics and DC Entertainment has kind of caved to that sort of mindset. So there's been a lid placed on top of, uh, content that would cater to, say, Jon Stewart fans for decades now. And I'm really happy to see that finally get taken off. So that's probably the best thing about the film, just that aspect of it. But how does it really hold up as a movie? I thought that the movie was okay. It wasn't great and it wasn't horrible. It tries to do too many things, I think, with its story. It's trying to introduce the Green Lantern core concept and the Power Ring with the Guardians and all of that, while also featuring the Justice League somewhat, while also getting into the Ranthanagar War, the Sinestro Corps glazing over them somewhat, and Sinestro, and also Hal Jordan and Parallax. So it's trying to juggle all these things while also attempting to manage its characters, and it comes across to me as just trying to do a little bit too much. I think the movie would have been better served had it simplified this, kind of gotten a more focused objective, a simpler objective, and focused on that, and you know, executed on that to the fullest. Because I think in this movie the character development does suffer somewhat. None of the characters seem very, very captivating because it's so. The movie couldn't really spare too much to build their bonds very well or feature good moments with them. Because when it's not, trying to manage this somewhat convoluted and jam packed storyline, it's got several kind of lengthy fight scenes, and some of them didn't really need to be there. Whenever new characters are introduced, well, not whenever, but a lot of the time, there's a quote unquote misunderstanding fight, which means heroes fight each other. There's, Marvel has been famous for doing that sort of thing for decades, heroes fighting each other because of a misunderstanding. And this movie it does too much of that. There's a misunderstanding fight with John and the Justice League, a misunderstanding fight with John and Green Arrow versus Hot Girl, a misunderstanding fight with John, Green Arrow, and Hot Girl versus Adam Strange. And, you could have cut one or even two of those to focus more on your character development and character bonds. And that would have, I think, helped people get more invested. I think there's a problem probably with the investment here. If you don't already know these characters and the DC universe, I wouldn't be surprised if people just weren't too invested in this. If people are already invested in this, like actually many of the viewers probably will be, if they're invested in these characters and this universe, then, I think they will deal with that better. But people just coming into this, I don't find the storyline to be captivating enough to really get people like that invested. You're throwing too many concepts at them, and I think you're moving too fast because you want to cram all this stuff in there. And I think it would have been better had you just gotten kind of a more focused approach, and one that and cut some of these fights out so you can focus more on your characters. That said, I have been doing a lot of complaining, but the fight scenes were really, really good. The choreography was great, and I was really impressed with the artwork and the set pieces, like the design of the locations and stuff was pretty cool some of the time. Like Ran looked really cool. Oa was okay, but actually Earth, I was pretty impressed by some of the shots of the city on Earth as well. So the set pieces were pretty cool most of the time. Some of them were a little dull. As far as, going back to the characters, I didn't feel that there was a really strong villain in this. There were villains, certainly. I think the villains weren't that strong because the movie wasn't very focused in that department. It didn't establish a really strong villain and stick to it. A lot of the movie was mystery, trying to figure out who the villain really is. So the real villain isn't like revealed until well after, a lot of time has gone by in the film. And in that, in some ways, in quite a few ways, this movie reminds me of Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, in that there's this mystery going on which causes the heroes to go from here to here to here, these different places. And the villain, like the people behind, like, the mystery, they're not revealed, which would be like in episode two's case, Count Dooku and the Separatist Council. They're not revealed until like quite a bit of the film has already been eaten up. So because of that, you know, a strong antagonist isn't really established in the movie. I think I'm not like the biggest hater of episode 2 as some people are, but this the, it didn't have quite that, strong antagonist in it, though I do think Count Dooku is a really good villain, but just he wasn't able to get established well until like way off, like I'm going off my memory here, probably more than half the movie had been over. And I think this Green Lantern movie, does a lot of the same things. It's the heroes trying to figure out a mystery, jumping in a spaceship, going from here to here to here to here to here. And, while they're trying to figure this out, you don't really get really strong antagonists established. And I think that kind of hurts this film to a degree, especially since this is like the first installment of potentially, an ongoing series of Green Lantern movies set in this continuity. So I think it would have been a lot better served had it just kind of been more focused, not try to do as many elaborate things, not try to juggle so much, but rather focus more in on a simpler objective and execute on that objective really, really well. But that said, I wasn't disappointed in the film. I thought it was okay. It wasn't terrible, and it wasn't really great. I do see a lot of areas where it could have been better, but I am glad that they did it, and I do think it's better than any other Green Lantern movie that you can find, whether animated or not. Now, there are some other things that I think will kind of interest more so fans of DC Comics and Green Lantern, more so than just the average person looking for just something entertaining to watch. And I might go into some spoilers in this part, so be prepared for that. It's how it I think the main thing is how it handles the character Hal Jordan. A lot of people, a lot of Green Lantern fans and DC Comics fans won't like that. As for me, I kind of that's kind of neither here nor there for me. I'm just looking at this movie and I'm judging the movie based upon itself, not any kind of outside factor. Just how well are you executing upon what you're trying to execute on? And that's kind of like where I'm coming from with this, but I know that some people definitely will not like how Hal Jordan is handled, and they will not like another criticism could be is that the character John Stewart they're stealing a lot of plot points that other Green Lantern characters like Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner that come from their stories where those characters are the lead character, and it's like they're taking those plot points in this story and they're giving them to John Stewart to be, the lead character in. And I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with that. So kind of more of those comic purists, I think, will be like upset with stuff like that. And what are my thoughts on that? Um, yeah, I think it's a problem, and it wasn't necessary for them to do any of that. Uh, to make a John Stewart and hot girl movie, like you didn't really have to do that. You're kind of asking for trouble. Because it's kind of like you're like slapping some of the fan base in the face when you really don't have to. You could have just left all of that alone, and you don't have to kind of bulldoze over other people's favorite characters to have a John Stewart lead. I think in the long run, like this isn't really pertain. It is pertaining to this movie, yes, but it kind of like goes beyond that even, just with like what you're doing with John Stewart as a character. I think in the long run, it isn't helping anything. Like, how is that? How is this helping anything? Your Green Lantern fan base is fractured like nothing I've ever seen before, personally, and it's like you're just fracturing it more by how you're handling characters that you could have just left alone. Um, and for what? Is it just because the writers are so uninspired that they can't come up with anything on their own for John Stewart? That's like not a good look. And I don't, you don't want to believe that, but when you're taking plot points from other characters' stories, I mean that's basically just what it looks like, and it makes it what I'm kind of getting at is it kind of makes the John Stewart character, seem weaker when he doesn't have his own stories. He's just taking from this character and taking from that character and taking from this character. Um, so that's I do understand that criticism, and I actually do agree with that criticism. They shouldn't be doing that, really. um, Take care of the problem at the root. Whether you do it in animation or you do it in comics, write some captivating John Stewart stories that are his own stories, and you can use those. I don't necessarily see why you have to take from other characters' works to give to John. I mean, I do see why you do, because John doesn't really have many of his own stories that are well suited for adaptation. But as I mentioned before, fix that problem at the root. I mean, this is coming from a guy who basically sat down and drew comics. There was nothing there. I couldn't work off of anything. I had to think of everything myself for my own comic series, Zatswan. And believe me, that's a daunting task, and I didn't fully understand how daunting until I had to sit down there and actually world build a mythology from scratch with nothing there. That was probably the hardest part of working on my project, was just getting off the ground when there's absolutely nothing there. Just getting off the ground is challenging. There's a lot you have to figure out and come up with, and ideally you want it to be creative and good. So, if I can do that, DC Comics and DC Entertainment can do that. So you have no sympathy for me there, for John not having anything. He's been around for 50 years. Write some stories and make them good. But ultimately, I do recommend this. It's not bad. I recommend it. And I think fans of the DC animated universe will really enjoy Green Lantern: Beware My Power, and I'm happy that it exists for those people. I'm one of them, because get we really hardly ever get anything catering towards us. So, but that's all I have to say for now. Look forward to more videos about comics and comic entertainment and Zatswan, Multiversal Guardian. And I will see you again very soon. Take care.